Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. So we saw in the last class that all philosophies talk about this triad, Jiva, Jagat, and Ishvara, and try to explain the relationship between them. And Vedanta also does the same thing. And Vedanta says there is one truth behind all the three. So, and that is the ultimate truth. That's the only truth, only reality. Okay. And to get at that reality, you can approach start the search either from Jiva standpoint, or from Jagat, or from Ishvara. And as we discussed last time, the most efficient, the best way is to do the Jiva. Investigate the Jiva and dismiss it, that ahankara, as nitya. And why it's the best? Because that is the direct approach. If you dismiss, if you investigate and establish that Jagat and Ishvara are unreal, this Jiva, ahankara still will be there, and in that process, it might get strengthened. So there is always that danger also. So the best way is to take a direct approach, investigate into the truth of this ahankara. This is what we have seen in verses 4 and 5. Today, we are going to start verse number 6. Each of this text is a little bit different from other texts. As I had mentioned even before, each verse directly looks at that Sat. And so from one verse to the next, there may not be any thought progression per se. Okay, this is 40 verses, all talking about this Sat in the Saddaršanam. So here in verse number 6, we are going to ask the question, which most of us, we have asked this question sometime or another. Is God with form or without form? This ātmā, the self that we are talking about, is it with form or without form? Is it with attributes or without attributes? Is it saguna or nirguna? Lot of argument about this question. So, whenever people asked Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi this question, whether God is sakara, with form, or nirakara, without form, his answer was very typical. He said, forget about God for now. You tell me, are you with form or without form? Who are you, sakara or nirakara? You investigate into that. So he gives further reasons why the jiva vichara is very important. Why handling this ahankara is so very important. So start investigating into that. He says, in this verse that it is the ahankara that colors your perception of both the world and God. Whether it is with form, without form, all that is triggered by the way you look at yourself. The way you look at the world, the way you look at God is fundamentally dependent upon the way you look at yourself. Therefore, if I do not change the way I look at myself, then I will never change the perspective of the world or my perspective of God. So we need to have the right perspective about ourselves first. In Vedanta, many people fail to get the result even after years of studying about the world and about God. They study about them for years because they are trying to change the world vision. Either their vision of the world or they were trying to change the world. They are trying to change their vision of God. But in all that, they do not effect any change in the way they look at themselves. They come to Vedanta as an individual, as a father, as a mother-in-law, as a mother, as a wife, as a son, son-in-law, daughter, daughter-in-law, a cousin, a niece, a nephew, a boss, a servant, a mechanic, a pilot. They do not give up that identity. With that, all that intact, they want to study the world, they want to study God. The individuality, the I came to Vedanta Vichara, and it is trying to change the world vision and God vision without changing the self vision. And some of us are also at fault when we talk about the glories of Vedanta. We say Vedanta makes a doctor a better doctor, a lawyer a better lawyer. It makes a Christian a better Christian, makes a Muslim a better Muslim, makes a Hindu a better Hindu. You know, when we talk about glories of Vedanta, we talk in those terms. But what Bhagavan says here is, forget about all that. That is not important. As long as you have trying to make those changes, you are going to fail. Therefore, he says, you look at yourself. As you look at yourself, so you will look at the world and at God. If you see yourself as an individual material body, the world will also be seen as a material universe. Your God will be a personal material God. That God sitting in Vaikuntha or Kailasha. If I am Saguna, the world will be Saguna. God will be Saguna. It all depends on the individual's vision, my self-awareness. I'm sure you have come across people saying their criteria to vote for a certain political candidate. This is the election season. So many reasons people give, and quite often they say, I like the way he or she dresses, the color of the skin, such are their physical characteristics, the way he speaks, the way she speaks. The same idea you extrapolate to the world vision and God vision. So you look at it yourself and then you project from there. So whenever one uses the word I, there is that I, there is a dress personality, physical personality, a pranic personality, a mental personality, intellectual personality. So many layers are there that dominate the use of the word I. Surendraji was bringing up this question before the class started. This is what we need to understand. The personality that I identify with will determine the way I look at the world and God. If I am a physical person, a bodybuilder, that is the way I will look at the world. If I am an emotional person, I will see the emotional personality in the world. If I'm an intellectual, I will look at the scholarship in the world. As I look at myself, so do I look at the world. So only when I am sure that I am nirguna ātmā, that identification becomes dominant when I use the word I. And all other personalities that I use for transaction, they all become incidental role. What is my true intrinsic nature? What is my incidental, transient, transaction role? That clarity we need to get. When arūpa aham, formless aham, is dominant, then alone my appreciation of God will also be the same formless, correct and complete. Therefore, he says, don't try to realize God without realizing your nature. If you do so, your attempt to realize God will miserably fail. Bhagavan Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, the 5th verse of the 12th chapter, Kleshodhi katarastesham avyakta sakta chetasam avyakta hi gadir dukkam dehavat vihi avapyate. The Deha Abhimani who is listening to Upanishadic Brahman will hear only words and words and words. So this is very important idea that is talked about in this verse, verse number 6. So let us read. Sarūpa-buddhirjagatīśvare ca sarūpa-buddhirjagatīśvare ca sarūpa-dhīrātmani yāvadasti sarūpa-dhīrātmani yāvadasti arūpa ātmā yadi prapaśyet arūpa ātmā prapaśyet saddṛṣṭirekā'navadhirhi pūrṇā saddṛṣṭirekā'navadhirhi pūrṇā. So, yāvadasti ātmani sarūpa-dhīhi. Yāvad, as long as one looks upon ātmani, one looks at oneself, sarūpa-dhīhi, as an individual, with the idea, with the dhīhi, with the notion of sarūpa, with form. That is, he comes to Vedantic studies, he does not remove his individuality. He wants to improve his individuality. he wants to be a better father, or she wants to be a happy mother-in-law, or she wants to be a happy wife. Someone wants to be a brilliant student, and as such. That means I want to retain my status as the father, mother-in-law, wife, student, and all that. I don't want to displace any of all that. Quite often we will hear people say, I am looking for peace of mind. All that. I don't want to change any of my identity. So, if a teacher can remove any such identification, if a teacher is successful to remove such identification from the student, then he or she will no longer be in the class. So, I have to give some fake promises that you will be a better father. You will be a very happy mother-in-law. You will be a happy wife. You will be a brilliant student. Come study Vedanta. Like I said earlier on, Vedanta makes a doctor a better doctor, a lawyer a better lawyer, a scientist a better scientist, all that. Really speaking, the aim of Vedanta is none of that, but to destroy the individuality as that father or mother-in-law or a scientist or the student. Because individuality is finite. There can never be an everlasting happy father or happy mother-in-law or wife or a student. Happiness and finite are oxymoron. They don't belong together. However, such a message is not very appealing to the student initially. So the student initially, everyone comes to Vedanta trying to find out. They may not state this explicitly. They trying to find out, retaining the ego, how can they be better? All that it does is to decorate that ego. A decorated ego is still a mortal. So as long as you continue with the sarūpa-buddhi, the notion of form, ātmani, in yourself, so long, sarūpa-buddhirjagatīśvare, you will continue to have this saguna sakara buddhi in the jagat also. Different from you, giving a variety of pleasant and painful experiences to you, the persecuting world will continue. Don't blame the world. The world has gained the capacity to persecute you because you have retained the saguna world. And you have done that by retaining your individuality. You have done so by remaining in saguna ahankara. You are a saguna adhikari here. It is like wearing dark glasses and complaining the world is dark. You wear the shades, blue shades, and look at the world and say everything looks blue. Green cooling glasses, everything is green. It's not the problem with the world, it's the glasses that you are wearing. This individuality you are retaining. Then sarūpa-buddhirjagatīśvare, that will be there with the world. Not only that, Ishvarecha, your notion of God also, your idea of God will also be saguna Ishvara. Nirguna Ishvara will never appeal to you. With regard to the world and God, the saguna notion will never go away. Your notion of the world and God will be there with reference to your notion about yourself. Suppose you say, I surrender to Saguna Ishvara. I will retain my ahankara. I will retain the division also. I will surrender to Saguna Ishvara because Ishvara is the creator, sustainer. And I will seek protection from God. Good. But then the Vedantin will say, that is all true, but you have forgotten one little detail. So one more thing. You said that Ishvara is the creator, sustainer, and all that. But remember, Ishvara is Layakarta also. He is also the destroyer. So that Ishvara will bring about Nasha also at the appropriate time. Therefore, as long as Sagunatvam is there, there will be division and mortality will be there. Fear will also not go away. So what should you do? Simple. That Ishvara must become Nirguna. Ishvara should become Nirguna, just existence. Just existence, and all the names and forms, multiplicity, just superimposed on it. That's all. The world must be seen as Nirguna Sat. And all the things and beings in this world, just Nama and Rupa, names and forms. If Ishvara Drishti and Jagat Drishti, if the God vision and world vision should change, you should become Nirguna Atma. The self should be recognized as Nirguna also. Whenever the I notion arises, the notion should be that of Nirguna I. Strictly speaking, to say you should have the notion of Nirguna I also is wrong. These are all the limitations of words. There should not be any notion. You should be just that. Just like an actor who plays some role on the stage, never forgets who he or she really is. So you should never forget which I you really are. Therefore, he says, ātmā arūpa. I am formless self. I am formless consciousness. So this is the transformation. So we need to transcend the form. As long as you are formful, you will be mortal. You have to transcend, go beyond. You must never have the idea, I am a localized individual. Ātmā arūpa iti yadi kaha prapaśyet. If one sees oneself as formless, if a person sees that I am that formless consciousness, and it is not enough to just verbalize it. It should be a fact for that person. Okay? That is what is important. Interestingly, Ramana Maharshi does not say how to gain this knowledge. He says this should be your knowledge. This is experiential knowledge, not just academic knowledge. He emphasizes the significance of ātmā vichara, aham vichara, but he does not deal with the process of the vichara per se. For that, you have to go to the original Shastra. You can go to Taittiriya Upanishad that we studied, where Sharira Traya Vichara or the Pañcakosha Vichara is done. There are other texts, dṛṣṭirekā'navadhirhi Viveka we did, dṛṣṭirekā'navadhirhi Vichara we did. Any of those Upanishads or Prakarana Granthas, you have to go study. And also, we have to study under the guidance of a qualified guru. So, if a person does this kind of study under the guidance of a qualified guru and recognizes that I am the Satchidananda Atma and gains sa dṛṣṭihi eka, that vision will be one vision. Vision of one. In that vision, there will be no division. In that vision, Jiva is also Satchidananda Atma, Jagat is also Satchidananda Atma, Ishvara is also Satchidananda Atma. There, Jiva Darshanam is Jagat Darshanam. That is also equal to Ishvara Darshanam. And this is Saddarsanam. The triad is reduced to one. So, Eka means Advaita Darshanam. Therefore, only Anavadhihi, he. Indeed, each one will become limitless. When you have Saguna Jiva, Saguna Ishvara, both of them will be finite. Each one of the three, Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, excludes the other two. So all three of them will be finite when you have all the divisions. When you come to the Nirguna Sat, it is Anavadhihi, limitless, infinite. All the three, Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara will be infinite. And the three will not be three anymore. It won't be three different things. They are just three words for one and the same truth, for one and the same Sat. So, Jiva equals Jagat, that equals Ishvara, and that equals Sat. And therefore only it is pūrṇā, it is full, it is complete. So you gain that vision of pūrṇatvam, the fullness, completeness. In that vision, there is no division of seer and the seen, of Jiva, Jagat, and Ishvara. The duality, the triad, is not there. So, the meaning is the absolute truth is formless only. That formless can appear in various forms. Those forms are given names, and all names and forms are superimposed. And with those names and forms, the formless appear as many, which we call the world. So only those fanatics that insist God is formless only, they are also wrong. The vision of oneness is the right vision. But if you take a fanatical view and then you abuse all forms, that's also not right. That's not the right vision. So in the absolute, who will see what with what? That darshanam is Saddarsanam. All these verses are meditative verses, I tell you. That's all. So after you have studied, when you come to Saddarshanam, you use this every verse in your meditation. So as long as one has the notion that one is the body, one is this body, so long the notion of world will exist. About God also, it will be the same, with form only. How this world appears only with reference to our body is the point taken up. Only formful world we experience. Okay, so Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi says, the very perception of Jagat and Ishvara, the perception of world and God, the very existence of the world and God is dependent on the arrival of ahankara. That is why in sleep, when the ego is dissolved, in sleep, that ego is dissolved, not permanently, only temporarily suspended. When that ahankara, I, is not there, where is the world? In deep sleep. In deep sleep, there is no world. Ahankara is suspended. And when the world is not there, in that state, where is the question of who created the world? The world itself is not there. Then where is the question of what is the cause of the world? So Ishvara also doesn't come into play. The definition of God is Jagat Karanam. The Karya, the world, is not there. Then where's the question of Karanam? Effect is not there. What to talk about cause? So therefore, Karya Jagat and Karana Ishvara both come into being only when this Ahankara, the Pramata, the observer, comes. In deep sleep state, Ahankara is not there. It's dormant. The minute, the moment, not even the minute, that nanosecond, that instant, you wake up, boom, that ahankara comes. So in the waking and dream, ahankara rises and the world rises. Then we will have to introduce God also. Therefore, he says, ahankara is the basis for the existence of the world and God. How does ahankara come into being? How does ahankara come into play first? Ahankara comes into being when you identify with the anatma. First, I should identify with the body. Then alone, I will become a localized individual. Ahankara comes into being. I identify with the body, with the mind, intellect, everything, the anatma vastu. Then I look around, I see the world. Then I have to introduce God. I see the world, what is the cause? So he says, this ahankara is responsible for the very existence of God and the world and the existence of division, everything. So this is the point that is made in the next verse, verse number 7. Yatpañcakośātmakamasti dehaṁ. Yatpañcakośātmakamasti dehaṁ. Tadantarā kim bhuvanaṁ cakāsti. Tadantarā kim bhuvanaṁ cakāsti. Dehaṁ vinā pañcavidhaṁ tadetat. Dehaṁ vinā pañcavidhaṁ tadetat. Paśyanti keva bhuvanaṁ bhaṇantu. Paśyanti keva bhuvanaṁ bhaṇantu. Together. Yatpañcakośātmakamasti dehaṁ. Tadantarā kim bhuvanaṁ cakāsti. Dehaṁ vinā pañcavidhaṁ tadetat. Paśyanti keva bhuvanaṁ bhaṇantu. Tadantarā. Tat refers to deham here. That refers to the body. Without body means without deha abhimana, identification. Without the identification of the body. Bhuvanam cakāsti kim. How will the world appear for you? So these are all rhetorical questions. Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi is famous for rhetorical questions. So he will just ask the question, Bhuvanam cakāsti kim. How will the world appear for you? The world does not appear for you. That is the meaning. Without the deha abhimana, the world has no appearance for you. In deha abhimana, you are descending down from your original nature. My true nature, my nature is I am formless. But when I get this identification, when there is deha abhimana, in that localized consciousness, in the reflected consciousness, I have this identification, I am the body, then I have fallen down. I descend down. I take avatara. Now, in the case of you and I, we don't call it avatara. That word is reserved for the Lord, Bhagwan. When Bhagwan comes down, he does it deliberately for specific purpose. Yada yada hidharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. Whenever adharma runs rampant and dharma begins to disappear, Bhagwan says, I come to restore, to re-establish. So very specific purpose is there. Paritrāṇāya sadhūnām, vināsāya ca duṣṭirekā'navadhirhi, dharma samsthapanārthāya sambhavāmi. We have seen that in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So when Bhagavan comes down, descends down, it is called avatara. And whatever he does is divine. In our case, we do not call it avatara. It's not done with knowledge. It happens because of ignorance. Our taking birth is a consequence of our ignorance of the self. So it is only falling down. It is not descending down. You can comfortably walk down the stairs. But if you trip and fall, tadak, 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 that is not walking down. That is falling down. when you descend down, as Bhagavan does, you are in one piece. When we fall down, we are in pieces. So us coming down is only janma, birth, rebirth, and all that. Anyway, without deha abhimana, there is no ahankara. Pañcakośātmakam dehaṁ asti. The body, deha, is nothing but this pañcakośātmakam. These 5 layers of ātmā only. These 5 layers. You are all familiar with the 5 layers. Annamaya kosha, pranamaya kosha, manomaya kosha, vijñānamaya kosha, ānandamaya kosha. You've seen that many, many times. They are all 5 layers of the not self. Identification with them is ahankara. Without ahankara, where is the world? If you do not have the body, senses, pranas, mind, and the intellect, will there be any experience of the world? So, tadantarā, without that, the body, bhuvanaṁ, cakāsti. What world is there? Without the knower, without the ahankara, without the pramata, where is the prameyam? What is there to be known? Without the knower, what is there to know? Simple question. Therefore, tadetat pañcavidhaṁ dehaṁ vinā. Vinā, without. Pañcavidhaṁ dehaṁ, without that 5-layered body. Without that body identification. Without ahankara. Get used to this word ahankara. You will hear it ad nauseam. Maybe finally after hearing this, you will be nauseated and throw that ahankara away. Maybe. Ke va bhuvanaṁ paśyanti. Indeed, who will see the world? Again, this is a rhetorical question. Without the body identification, without that ahankara, nobody will see the world. Bhaṇantu. Bhaṇantu means you tell me. Bhagavan is challenging you. Tell me, who will see this world if you don't have body identification? Bhaṇantu, you tell me. Apart from the body, made up of these 5 sheets, will there be the world? Without body identification, without ahankara, who is there to perceive this world? As long as you think you are this body, the experience of the world will be there. Who will say the world is of this form when you don't have this body identification? Only with all this, only with the body, senses, prana, mind, intellect, the status of experiencer comes. If the body is not there, the experiencer will not be there. There will not be any world to experience. So you will have to add. When Bhagavan asks, where is the world? You have also to add, where is God? God is introduced only as Jagat Karanam. And if the world is not there, When that effect is not there, where is the need for cause? God is also not there. Sounds like a blasphemous statement, but from the absolute, very true. Where is the question of all this division? If ahankara is not there, where is this division of jiva, jagat and ishvara? So elimination of this division requires the elimination of ahankara. That's why in the fourth verse we saw that you directly attack, eliminate this ahankara. Get rid of this duality, get rid of this triad. Don't try to pamper this ahankara by getting knowledge about this world, knowledge about Ishvara, delving deep into that. All that will only boost your ego. That is not the aim of Vedanta. The aim is the elimination of ahankara. The truth of this world, the truth of that Ishvara is the truth of you. The truth of yourself will be the truth of the world. It is the truth of Ishvara. The world is nothing but the expansion and extension of you in the macrocosmic form. As you see, it will be seen. As you do, the world will be. So don't say I am insignificant. What I think and do does not matter, does not amount to anything. No, don't say. Don't say so. It has to do with everything. You affect the world. You change yourself. Get rid of that ahankara. That is not real either. When that collapses, the world collapses. Ishvara collapses. Only thing that is there is existence. Sat alone remains. That is Saddarshanam. Many implications. More of it we will see next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.